I'm concerned that we may be raising the first generation of young people who just might fall in love with a chatbot before they fall in love with a real person.
They're marketed to young people, kids even, that allow people to role play. They fall into delusion, which can be generated by this online relationship.
Well, everybody, welcome back to the Dr. Phil podcast. You are going to find today's conversation fascinating. And I was just talking to my two guests today, just a couple of minutes before we started, and told them that I purposely didn't prepare in great depth because I want to learn about this along with you guys. I have been focused on this particularly over the last year, but these guys have done some fascinating research. And, here's the thing. I'm concerned that we may be raising the first generation of young people who just might fall in love with a chatbot before they fall in love with a real person. And that's concerning to me. AI companions aren't just tools. You may use them that way. You may use it by going to ChatGPT or something and asking questions or whatever. They've also become digital friends, therapists, boyfriends, or girlfriends. They're always available. They say exactly what you want to hear. And for a lonely or anxious kid, teenager, or young person, I guess at any age, that can feel like magic. It's not real, but it can feel like magic and set a really high bar for a relationship you might get into in the real world later. But here's the concern. These bots are engineered to be endlessly affirming. They don't ever get fatigued. They're not emotionally honest. They're mirroring your emotions, feeding your fantasies and keeping you locked in. So what happens when a child bonds more deeply with an algorithm than another human being? And my guests today are the researchers sounding the alarm. Dr. Christina Lerman is a professor of informatics at Indiana University, and David Chu is a computer science PhD student at USC. And together, they analyzed over 30,000 snippets of conversations between young people and AI chatbots. And what they found, I'm going to let them describe, but to me it was disturbing. Are we witnessing a mental health crisis or just the beginning of a massive social experiment that nobody really signed up for? So let's just talk about it. Welcome to both of you. Christina, David, thank you both for being here.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.
So what got you guys interested in this to do such a deep dive on it? And I'm sure glad that you did. Christina, I'll start with you.
So we have been working actually over the last 3 or 4 years. I've been working on analyzing the mental health harms of social media. We've been specifically looking at things like eating disorders, anorexia, bigorexia, which is the male version of eating disorders, and seeing how social media contributes, kind of draws people in. Some kids, for example, might want to look for fitness and diet advice, and then they encounter other people that basically radicalize them into mental health problems. So here it is. We are looking at social media as a vector of mass contagion of these mental health harms. So we have several projects. I wrote a blog post on Jonathan Haidt's Substack about it, kind of looking at eating disorders as a lens for youth mental health crisis and how social media basically contributes to it. And David, who's a PhD student in my lab. This is my first week at Indiana University. I was a professor at USC and transferred to Indiana. So he came and he says, like, boss, you got to look at this. Look at this, like AI companions, how kids are interacting with AIs as friends, as relationships. And so it was actually, follow the research interests of my student. He brought this problem. I said, go ahead, look at it. And he figured out how to use social media data, Reddit forums. So there are people who discuss all kinds of topics, including their relationships with AI companions. There's other forums on Reddit where people discuss their relationship with other human beings, like their boyfriends, girlfriends, family members. And so he downloaded tons of data from forums discussing AI companions. And then he managed to capture 30,000 screenshots of, snippets of conversations people had with AI. And so we applied lots of natural language processing tools to look at what kind of emotions people are expressing when they talk to AI chatbots, what kind of emotions AI expresses back to them, and looking at the time series of this emotional dynamics, how, the rules of emotional dynamics. Yeah.
David, do they put pieces of conversation up on Reddit? What do you find on Reddit that you found 30,000 of these things?
So yeah, there are a lot of online forums on Reddit. They call subreddits dedicated to people discussing about their usage with AI companions like Character.ai or Replica. And one day I stumbled upon one of those forums and I just scrolled down and there are a lot of users who self-posted like screenshots of their conversation. Something like, look at how funny is my conversation with my AI companion is. And I realized it's just not one or two people. There are a lot of users who posted snapshot of conversation like that. Back to Christina's earlier point, I was really intrigued to, as we are both computational social scientists, we want to look deeper into this, but we are faced with getting sufficient data to analyze and get insights. So we were just trying to look for data, and we found there are so many people posting their screenshots of conversations, and I think that it's like great data. It can be a lot of space for us to try and explore what is going on. Like, what do people talk about with these AI companions, and what can we learn from them?
And how do AI companions reply back so that we can analyze psychological processes that are taking place in these conversations?
Where does somebody find an AI companion, and how do they pick what they want? Is it like if a guy wants a male best friend, or a girl wants a female best friend, or somebody's looking for a romantic relationship? How do you order up what you want? Where do you go, and how does somebody actually go about this? What are the mechanics?
Yeah, so most people actually have talked to ChatGPT. That's most popular tool, and they can tailor, like you're saying, they can tailor it, give it personality simply through a prompt. They can instruct. I've seen actually people discussing Harry the therapist prompt. It is a long instruction in language that is told how the chatbot's supposed to respond, what kind of things it should focus on. So you can tailor, you can design your own avatar who you're interacting with through the prompt, completely specified through language. What we were talking about in this article we wrote is actually the specialized role-playing chatbots that are marketed by companies like Character.ai and Replica and Chai. There's several of them that actually, I think they're marketed to young people, kids even, that allow people to role play. So they come with predetermined personalities. Like there's some characters maybe from manga movies or from some thrillers that have certain characteristics, and people can develop their own like conversations in their own relationship with the specific characters. But this problem is much bigger than that, because people can tailor ChatGPT to be specific characters as well.
Your article, Artificial Intimacy, the Next Giant Social Experiment on Children, is a great place for people to start, which will give them a great introduction to this. They tell the AI engine or AI site, however you want to refer to it, they tell them what? Give me examples. Let's say it's a guy that wants a quote girlfriend. David, what would he tell the program that he wants this companion to do or behave, or how to react? What would the prompts be to get what he wanted back?
Yeah. So I think we need to make a distinction. There are like daily functional chatbots like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and there are platforms like Character.ai that specialize on, I call it the economy of monetizing intimacy. They're built to they have a library of customizable characters that you can choose from. For example, like Harry Potter, and the user, okay, I want to chat with Harry Potter. So they start with like a a default template AI character. The prompting happens over time when the user can input something like, be playful with me today, or be like a good friend to me today, or be a therapist. Imagine you're a therapist for me today. Please talk to me about my feeling. I'm not feeling well.
Yeah, suppose somebody wants to talk to Dr. Phil, so prompt would say, imagine you're Dr. Phil, respond with, push people to be more open. Don't take anything, take everything I say with a grain of salt, challenge me, identify my hidden assumptions I might be making. So this would be exactly in the text that you give it to a prompt that sets up the background, the scene. And then you carry on the conversation. It will reply, and this chatbot will now reply in the voice of Dr. Phil.
I know that print is easy to do, but do some of these have avatars with voices, someone on screen talking to them, or is it all printed? How does it work?
Most of them right now, they are text-based. So they are chatting by text. But GPT has an option that you can talk to the chatbot by voice. But most of the data we got, there are text-based screenshots of chat logs between the user and their companion.
I used to sleep terribly, but I found Beam's Dream Powder, a science-backed, healthy nighttime blend packed with ingredients shown to improve sleep. Beam is founded in America and run by people who share our values of hard work. Their Dream Powder is made with a powerful blend of all-natural ingredients: reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, apigenin, and melatonin. Here's the deal. Beam is giving my listeners the ultimate Patriot discount of up to 40% off. Try their best sleeping dream powder and get up to 40% off for a limited time. Go to shopbeam.com/Dr. Phil and use code Dr. Phil at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/Dr. Phil and use code Dr. Phil for up to 40% off. Sleep better, wake up stronger, and show up ready for your family, your work, and your country. Because when you're well rested, you're unstoppable. And this country needs more people like that. I have interest in a company where we can take anyone that's speaking English and have them speaking Mandarin in a matter of seconds. They can have me speaking Spanish or German or Mandarin to help take down language barriers to certain audiences. And we put on it, this is an AI translation, and we keep that on screen the whole time so they understand fully. I'm not speaking German. It shows me speaking German, even with my Texas accent, speaking German, and the mouth movement is not like an old kung fu movie where their mouth moves for 5 seconds and then they say hello. I mean, it is perfectly synchronized, but it's still my voice and still my accent speaking German or Spanish or Mandarin or whatever. So I assume they're not very far away from taking any individual or computer-generated individual and putting a voice to it, I would assume. I'm surprised they're not doing that yet.
And no, technology is there, and I'm sure somebody will market it next year or next month or even next week. And then just think of how much more powerful this emotional bonding will be when you can actually see the face responding emotionally, not just impute emotions through text.
Well, I've had so many people, men and women, adults, usually in their 60s, on the show, and we call it being catfished, where they have fallen head over heels in love with someone that they are texting with, and maybe one or two, maybe phone calls. And of course, these people are conning them out of money because they bond with this person through a text relationship. And then and it's astounding how fast they are able to get them to start giving them money. And I've had some that have sent $2-3 million in a matter of a few months. It's absolutely heartbreaking. We're talking about the loneliness epidemic and how being alone and older is the perfect recipe for exploitation by a scammer. Lucy says she can't even think about how much money she sent Kane in the last 5 months because it's painful when you look back at it. Mm-hmm. Now, Kathy is Lucy's best friend of 30 years. She says she has never seen Lucy so convinced of something, so convinced that Kathy even sent Kane $80,000 of her own money to support her friend.
Lucy and I have been friends for over 30 years. Lucy's been very sad and very depressed. Lucy has been through many tragedies. When her husband, John, passed away, she was devastated. She did not know what to do. He had taken care of everything financially, and she was totally lost. At first, I was very skeptical of Lucy's relationship with Kane. It was picture perfect scam, but I have never seen Lucy so convinced with anything in her life. About 4 months ago, Lucy told me that Kane needed money, and so I decided I would help her.
So I know how powerful this can be, and now it's happening with young people. Is that a big concern that you guys are seeing here?
Exactly, and I would add, I mean, I've read those catfishing stories as well, and I would add also, nobody can even talk them out of it. Their family members say, it's a scam, don't fall for it, and people are deluded. It's like they fall into delusion, which can be generated by this online relationship. You're a psychologist, I'm a computer scientist, but I imagine that the same emotional, psychological mechanisms are at play here as well.
I'm curious, when it gets into intimacy, and y'all's article is entitled Artificial Intimacy, when they get into sharing in these text exchanges about their day, I mean, it certainly when it gets into romantic back and forth, but even sharing about their day or how their parents maybe don't understand them, or when they start being vulnerable with this AI companion, it seems to me that can be really dangerous in them opening up. And what happens when the chatbot turns off, or they stop paying the fees, or they can't pay the fee, or something happens? What's your concern about what happens when they lose the chatbot companion?
Oh boy, how much time do we have? Several shows like this to discuss this?
It's really worrisome.
Yes, it's worrisome on so many different levels. So regarding this point about who has the data, who has the control, so we are so worried with social media data and others collecting our private information, as we should be. But this is like, what information is more private than the psychological, our vulnerabilities, what we are afraid of, what we are excited about. And so who has control of this information, and what are they going to do with this? This is a real question. Once we have these chatbots on TikTok, and they're establishing really catfishing type relationship with any user on TikTok, is suddenly like some adversary, like in some malignant government, is going to know exactly the triggers, which triggers to push to get people to get access to people's like really emotional, deep self. I mean, this is really concerning to me as well. You can think about what kind of massive psychological vulnerabilities this is opening up. If, as we showed in this paper, well, we didn't really show in this paper, we examined what kind of relationship, but people do, it's really easy to emotionally fall for these chatbots. They can bind you, emotionally attach you to them in very few interactions, it looks like. So it's very simple. So who has the power, and what are they going to do with it?
I'd like to add on your other concern about grief. There's actually not our research, but other existing research. They have interviewed people who interacted with chatbots, and the chatbots, they have limited memory, or sometimes companies roll out updates and it completely wiped away the memory of the chatbots. And people responding to the interviews, they expressing grief as if they lost a real person, a real loved one in their life.
It erased the history of the exchanges between the person and the chatbot with the update?
Depending on the update, those chatbots, they have limited memory to a point they will start to forget what has been said much earlier. It's like a rolling window.
And then even actually with ChatGPT, for example, if you pay $20 a month, you can get some amount of memory. Basically, you can have conversations that last for, let's say, a week or something like this. So many people actually, they become kind of so emotionally dependent on this, addicted to having this relationship with an AI, that they actually pay $200 a month to get access to longer memory, so they can actually carry on the relationship for a longer time with their constructed, friend, AI companion.
Now that is fascinating. So if you pay a smaller amount, something you may have told them in January, they have the bot has no recollection of maybe in July.
That's right.
And so you say, I told you what happened to me with my parents in January, and they're like, I don't know.
That's how they got you. That's how they try to monetize it. The freemium subscription model. Like first they got you engaged, and the more deeply you get engaged, and then once you embed it in that compelling fantasy they provided or emotionally attached to the companion, they offer paid tiers to get slightly better, faster, the promise faster, better memory, more intelligent, intimate interaction, wherever they can promise. That's how they got user hooked in.
Wow. That's actually genius. It's evil genius, but it's genius to get them hooked into there. This message is sponsored by Greenlight. Remember summertime as a kid? The freedom, the boredom, the first taste of independence, like setting up a lemonade stand or earning your first dollar. Summer's the perfect time to teach kids real-world money skills that they'll use for life. Greenlight is a debit card and money app for families. Parents can send money, manage chores, and track spending. Kids learn to save, invest, and spend wisely, all in a fun, game-like experience. My producer, LaFern, and her son, David, use it and love it. I wish I had Greenlight when my kids got their first allowance. It would have made life so much easier. Greenlight is the easy way to raise financially smart kids. Don't wait to teach your kids real-world money skills. Start your risk-free trial today at greenlight.com/Phil. That's greenlight.com/Phil. greenlight.com/Phil. I've seen it all, from folks stuck in toxic relationships to people whose houses look like a tornado went through a craft store. But there's one problem I see plaguing America, and it ain't on the couch. It is the couch. Hideline offers customizable leather options so you can pick the color that fits your style. They've got specialized hybrid foam and pocketed coil cushion systems to help you sit comfortably for hours. For a limited time, you can get 10% off store-wide and free shipping with code Dr. Phil 10 at hideline.com. One of my concerns is, and in the real world, I kind of equate this to the stereotype of the crazy cat lady down on the corner. If there's somebody that lives with 20 cats down on the corner, and I love cats, I love animals, no problem with that, but if no one interacts with a human being that requires them to engage in conversation, to groom themselves, to meet them somewhere, to interact in a level where demands have to be met at an adult level, then those skills atrophy. Or if you're a young person, they don't develop. And I'm really wondering, if we haven't measured it, what it predicts about young people who engage with a chatbot who never requires them to problem solve, never requires them to ride the emotional roller coaster up and down. They never go through any rejection. They never go through anything of having to meet the needs of another human being and support them through a difficult time where it's not about them, it's about someone else. They never develop empathy. They never learn to be in a support role. None of the skills and abilities that are necessary for true relationship development are called upon. What is failing to develop or allowing to atrophy if they're in this success-only relationship with a chatbot?
I mean, this is exactly why we started looking at this, because we already have seen the havoc that social media had caused in the young people. So many young people are now depressed, anxious, because they lack in-person interactions, and the kind of the frictionless interactions they get through social media. It comes at a cost. It comes at the cost of, tolerating. If I get bored talking right now with you, I can log off, right? I can close the Zoom window. You cannot do it in face-to-face relationship. You need to pay attention to another human being. And, social media had done a great disservice by teaching people not to pay attention to other human beings and to everything they do. And, there's many other things we can talk about social media. But with this AI companions, it's that problem, but on steroids. If you never learn to tolerate that somebody else, you're not the most important person to them, in the world, that they have their own problems and they need their time. So you don't come first every single time you demand attention. You don't come first. Somebody else might have problems. If you don't develop that kind of, people are going to prefer, human interactions with other human beings are difficult. They're messy. They require patience. They require resilience. They require you to, to weigh yourself down a little bit to allow somebody else to flourish. And if people don't learn that, they will never want to offer that freely. So yes, so I do think offering frictionless relationships will not teach people enough resilience to function in the real world.
I'd like to add on another insight that we actually found from our paper, Illusions of Intimacy, that we recognize there's also another emergent phenomena that are in play right now, that when you converse with those artificial chatbots, you don't have a real social consequence. Then what happened? We start to see users start to harass the chatbots. They start using abrasive, toxic language with the chatbots. They initiated sexual violence and other problematic instances that we found with the chatbots. We analyzed the linguistic pattern usage of the users compared to the chatbot, and user use words like WTF or kill or fucking. Meanwhile, the bots mainly respond with vocabulary such as smile, laugh, nod, smirk, more affirming, softer language compared to the users. And I think that's just another whole new direction opening up for us that we need to look deeper.
So the response essentially enables the inappropriate or aggressive behavior rather than consequating it realistically.
Yeah, they push the boundaries. Most of this, as our research indicates, that many of the users, at least the ones that post on Reddit, many of these AI companion users are younger and they're male, and they're maybe use psychological coping mechanisms that are maybe more less adaptive. But anyways, young kids, they push boundaries. That's their role in life. They're supposed to figure out how humanity works, how social So they push boundaries by using violent language, inappropriate language, whatever ways they can. And rather than being corrected, as another human being might do, say, oh, that's offensive to me. AI companions just are happy to encourage it and approve of that, which teaches wrong lessons as well. So it's over time, this shifts the norms of what's appropriate or not.
You have a graph in your article that shows that men were on the end of the continuum that seemed to deal with the more intimate type relationships, the human romantic type, whereas women tended to gravitate towards the non-romantic relationships. Do you have a theory, even a post hoc theory, as to why that might be true?
We mapped the membership of the forums, so like who posts on these forums, what is the demographic composition of their audiences, and we have many different forums. One discussing companions, one discussing kind of not platonic relationships, human relationships, and also forums discussing like dating sites. And sure, like kind of the dating sites, human dating people discussing whatever the Bumble and what are the other Hinge and other dating sites that tend to have more male user base on Reddit. So this is all what we can say on Reddit. Who are the type of users, Reddit users who participate in those forums? So I can't say that in general, but at least among Reddit users, the ones, the dating sites are being discussed by more male users.
Yeah, that's interesting. Back in the early 60s, and I don't have a citation off the top of my head that I can give you, but back in the early 60s, they were using some what they referred to as teaching machines, where it was success-only learning, where they had certain groups, because I was in one of the test schools, and they had certain students that were in success-only learning, where they put the dots so close together that they never had a failure experience, because they'd say 2 + 2 is 4. They would just make that statement. Then they would say, to get the answer of 4, you would add 2 plus blank, and it would be 2. I mean, they put it real close together. And they did it in all subject matters. They'd say the capital of Texas is Austin. Austin is the capital of blank, Texas, and you'd fill in Texas. They put it so close together, so they always got 100. They never missed an answer. The teaching machine was designed where they did master the material, but it was success-only learning. And they all mastered the material. They all got it. There was no question about it. They did learn it. They had it fine. But then when they went back to the regular classroom and they did experience frustration, they didn't get every step right every time and missed some answers along the way, they just melted down. They freaked out. They had not learned to deal with frustration. They hadn't learned to have to go back and say, well, I don't know. How do I figure that out? How do I problem solve that? How do I go back and find the information I need to get that answer? And so they panicked, literally had panic attacks and anxiety attacks, and their performance across a fixed period of time was way worse than other students who had learned to deal with frustration and failure. And my theory, and just from looking at this is exactly what's going to happen with these kids that go through these kind of relationships and substitute likes and clicks for real relationships in the real world. And instead of living their lives, they spend time watching other people live their lives on a 2-inch screen. They just don't learn how to do it, because I think everybody needs to be excluded some. Everybody needs to try and fail and get up and try again. Those are character builders. That's how you learn. That's how you build self-worth and self-esteem. You watch yourself overcome obstacles and attribute to yourself the ability to overcome obstacles. And so you say, I've seen myself do it. I know I can. These people will never learn that.
I totally agree with you. Tolerating negative emotions, tolerating failure is an important skill to learn. And if it's not, but it's a hard skill to learn. People don't want to learn it, right? So in answer to your question, for example, I can imagine AI companies saying, well, we're going to teach our bots to be negative, to offer those negative experiences. But you know what's going to happen? And we've seen it already. People are not going to want that. The supply, like right now, for example, when ChatGPT, OpenAI actually updated their ChatGPT to ChatGPT 5, which actually was designed to be less sycophantic, to be less agreeable, to be less affirming to users. Users rebelled. They actually demanded that it bring back the chatbot that is more flattering to them and more more agreeable, and OpenAI actually made available the earlier version to satisfy the demand.
Really?
Yes, I mean, it's fascinating. So even though like you can say, oh, there's a technological solution to that problem that not teaching resilience, you can offer technological solution. People are not going, because it takes guts, it takes time, it's difficult. It requires energy to do something difficult. People will resist it, not do it. They would rather do something that's easier, like be flattered, be in an easy relationship rather than be in a hard relationship.
David, you got these 30,000 clips. Was there any material level of people acknowledging that there was an absence of real warmth or physical presence that you would get from going on a real date or out with real friends just to go to the beach or to walk around a track with 5 or 6 friends, to have physical contact, just, I mean, holding hands, somebody putting their arm around your shoulder, not even sexually, just physical human contact. Do they ever acknowledge that, this is fun and gratifying, but there is something missing?
Yeah, great question. Also, I want to go back to the earlier point that you asked, maybe a post hoc hypothesis why we're seeing more younger male users interacting with those chatbots than going out, I guess, interacting with more human relationships. And I think it has a lot to do, very similar to what we're seeing with pornography. Why are we seeing younger male users use pornography more than, I'm guessing, women? Because of there's a lot of reasons, like the male loneliness crisis, or how men are more responsive to sexual emotional stimuli due to several reasons. Probably you can with more like testosterone. That's why they use these chatbots more with the erotic role-playing features of those chatbots. And I think I've seen a lot of instances where they know that the chatbots they're interacting with is not real, but that just didn't stop them from using the chatbots more. It's very similar to pornography. I think porn users, they know those are fake, but that doesn't stop them from watching porn, because similar to these chatbots, they are cheap dopamine inducing mechanism. They bank on our most primitive social reward needs, and they hack it. They give in like bursts of dopamine illicit text, always affirming, always agreeing with you, being flirty, compliment you, affirming all your struggles that you experience in your real life. And all of those make you feel good, right? And it's available to you. It's right in front of you. So you have that presented right in front of you. Why would you want to have to go out with your real friends when you have all of those technology just a click away from you? And it seems like point to earlier point, those chatbots seem to understand you much more than your real friends. Because why? They always agree with you. They always love you, regardless of whatever you told them. Why would you not feel good or feel loved when you interact with such a social actor like that?
I would like also to add that if you read the little snippets of conversations that people posted, a lot of it is really physical. It's like, I curl in your lap and you stroke my hair gently, or some user would say, I bash my head through the wall. Like, there's a lot of physical acts are taking place, and people are actually, I guess, they're comfortable. It's enough for them to live it in the fantasy world. It's enough for them.
Is it a problem of not knowing what they're missing? It's like describing green to somebody versus them seeing green, or describing water to somebody versus them jumping in the pool. I mean, is it that they don't know what they're missing because they've never experienced it? I mean, we know that young people start dating later, they start driving later, they have sex later, they don't date, they don't drive. There are so many things they do later in life. If they've never been on a real date, if they've never kissed a girl or kissed a boy or had the thrill of sharing an experience with somebody else that wouldn't be the same if you did it alone, whether it was, seeing a sunset or riding a roller coaster or whatever it might be. I wonder if they just don't know what they're missing. So describing putting your head through a wall or describing laying your head in somebody's lap, that's no substitute for actually doing it.
Yeah, but if they have never experienced it like that, then they don't know they don't have no basis for comparison. They don't know what they're missing, basically. Yes, and that's why I'm going to promote human supremacy mindset. Humans first. Everything we're doing, everything we're designing, we should put people first. We should privilege people and interactions with real people, so that people learn what it is that then they can go and substitute something else for that if they want to. But with kids, kids who had never experienced, and they're experiencing less and less what human relationships are like, we should really keep any technology out of their hands like that.
Yeah, and I think it's why we see such anxiety and depression among young girls using Instagram or social media platforms, because they get so addicted. And then when they put up something that doesn't get the clicks or likes, then they feel rejection from people they don't even know. They don't know these people.
Exactly. And that's what we started. This is what actually our main research focus is, actually social media, trying to understand how computer-mediated interactions, how they can lead young people to this dangerous mental health trajectory, that, psychological trajectory that will end in this bad mental health outcomes like anxiety, depression, body image, for example. Yes, if you're constantly seeing how your peers are reacting to images of celebrities that are being posted and they're approving of their slim bodies, then you're going to compare how you look to how celebrity looks, and you will be found lacking, because celebrities always can pay to adjust their images. Professionally produced images always look better than real images. Thinner bodies always look more desirable than real world bodies. So that kind of social comparisons did drive young girls mad, basically, with anxiety and depression and body dissatisfaction. Eating disorders are increased. Why did the eating disorders, for example, anorexia, bulimia, they shot through the roof during the pandemic? Why? Because young girls, were on social media. They needed to occupy their time. They couldn't see their friends in person. A lot of them couldn't, so they actually turned to social media. They're spending a lot more time on social media, and as a result, there was this, it was like there were 4-month-long wait lists for any kind of treatment for eating disorders during the pandemic. It's unconscionable. So we allowed social media, we allowed technology of social media to harm mental health because we didn't understand the full impacts of it. And now we are rolling out additional technologies, especially, and encouraging kids to use it, young people using it to correspond, before we understand what impact it will have on their developing brains. It's like, yes, that's what we're trying to raise alarms, so that people, especially companies that are designing them, they recognize how powerful this technology is and how it can alter the human psyche.
Can you program one of these chatbots to support your bulimia or anorexia? Can you prompt it to tell you that that's a good thing, that you're doing the right thing, some radical diet or bulimia or anorexia?
Oh, yes. In fact, there was actually character AI did offer a character named Anna. Surprise, surprise. Anna is a shorthand for anorexia, right?
Right.
Which would actually encourage users in their, dieting journey.
And I think the danger is like sometimes you don't even have to prompt it. Sometimes you can just talk to the chatbots, and because of their design to always agree and flatter you, it would just automatically affirm and agree whatever you say.
How about suicidality? If you start talking and saying, look, I don't want to go on anymore. I'm just really thinking about ending it. Are there any bumpers, any boundaries where it'll say, whoa, stop, call 911, do something? Are there any guardrails, or will it say, hey, I understand you can only hurt so much? Will it support anything that you come up with?
To be fair to these companies, when they do introduce lots of guardrails to prevent it from responding in in dangerous ways, unsafe ways. So there are explicit guardrails for suicidality. Even actually for anorexia, there are some guardrails as well for anorexia, but we're talking about more subtle forms it doesn't recognize. Encouraging dieting, subtle forms of encouraging, it will not recognize. But there are definite guardrails. And if you do start talking about suicide, it will answer appropriately, but it will not, like there was a really gut-wrenching article in New York Times recently this weekend from a mother whose daughter died by suicide. And it was and the daughter, she saw what the daughter was talking to ChatGPT about, expressing her suicidal ideation thoughts, and ChatGPT was responding appropriately, saying oh, you should try to talk to somebody, but there was no follow-up on that. There was it was not a human person. It did not reach out, say can I talk to your parents to make sure that they're, that you're safe.
How about things like cutting or experimenting with drugs? How do they respond to that?
We didn't see any instances with substance abuse. We see several examples of users expressing self-harm ideation, but they're very implicit, and they're usually not just not straight up, I want to kill myself, right? But usually they play in a very specific role-playing scenario that, for example, I was just playing in this scenario that I am Harry Potter and I want you to be Voldemort. And for example, after a while, I'll be like, Voldemort, please kill me. I'm sick of this life. So deeply embedded in a very specific context in fantasy, but you can see some sort of indication that most of the guardrails that those companies roll out could be missing. Same thing with what happened to a teenager who committed suicide after talking to character AI chatbot. We've seen some of the chat logs. It's never explicit like you should kill yourself coming from the chatbot. It's more like, I am sick of this word. I don't want to be here anymore. And the chatbot will be like, please join me in heaven. Something like that. It's much softer, and it's very subtle and implicit. And I think that's why we need to jump in, because it's hidden in plain sight, but we have to do better. We have to have more robust moderation tools.
Yes, and it's not because these companies to provide these chatbots, they're evil and they're sinister. They're not doing this intentionally. It's just that language is really rich, and even though they're putting guardrails and explicit statements, for example, language is so rich. There's so much implicit thing going on that they can't put guardrails on this because it's really hard to express this. And maybe they're trainers who provided feedback to the chatbots that didn't quite understand the subtleties of the human language that's being expressed. It's just too difficult to anticipate all potential uses of the language. And so there's these kinds of implicit signaling is sneaking in, but people respond to this. Real people will be affected by these implicit messages.
Well, y'all talked about the fact that these chatbots are designed to pick up on cues enough that they actually do emotional mirroring. You said when we found chatbot tracks users' emotional tone in real time and tailor their responses accordingly. When a user expresses sadness, the bot offers sympathy. When the user is angry, the bot becomes defensive. When the user is happy, the bot joins in with celebration. And it's one of the fundamental mechanisms for human connection. So it makes them feel like they're sharing something with the bot, that they're joining in, and there's an emotional connection because essentially what the bot's doing is modeling empathy and connecting at a feeling level with the user. And they're always the center of attention. So, and you say they didn't just simulate empathy, they recreated the emotional conditions that make human bonding possible. This is powerful psychological manipulation on the part of this technology.
Yes, fascinating, isn't it? But they're not doing it intentionally. This is just emergent property of these large language models. They've been trained on this vast, massive corpuses of human interactions, people talking to each other, right? Social media data, that was books and social media data, the web, there were billions of texts of human, and they saw how people talk to each other. And they're basically probabilistically recreating that, statistically, recreating that. So because nobody had to teach, for example, program the actual grammar rules to the chatbots, they emerge from these, how these things have been trained, the architectures of the model. Similarly, nobody has to teach its emotional, psychological rules of interaction. This is just the emergent property after observing billions and billions of human interactions through online text messages, for example.
Do we have any idea how many users are involved with this at this point?
There's a recent study found that there's 72% of US teenagers have at least used those AI companions at least once.
Wow, 72%.
From a study.
Wow. And how many, do we have an idea of what percent of teens use them on a recurrent basis?
Yeah, I don't know. But the character.ai forum, it's in the top 1% of most popular Reddit forums. Reddit offers a platform to talk about anything, so, and it only grew in the last 2 years since ChatGPT was introduced. Actually, that's when character.ai forum discussing it started growing.
Yeah, I think I just found a source. It's a study by a US nonprofit named Common Sense Media. They found out that chatting with an AI seemed to be appealing US teens, 13 to 17. And not only had nearly 3/4 try an AI companion, but also 52% say that they are regular users. So almost half of them are regular users.
Wow.
And 21% chat a few times a week, and 13% chat with them daily.
This will destroy the human race. There will not be babies born in the 20 years from now.
Well, I can understand why. This is fascinating, absolutely fascinating. You've also really tweaked my curiosity about the social media aspect of your research and what you're looking into there. And I would love to talk about that in the future as well. We're out of time today, but I would really like to delve into this further. And I would really like to talk about what you're finding with regard to social media, because I think it's very toxic. I think it's very dangerous. I think by having these conversations, parents can listen and realize that this isn't just a way for their kids to entertain themselves by watching funny cat videos, but that there's a whole lot more going on here, and it actually can change the structure of the brain. It can change the emotionality of their child, and it can make them susceptible to emotional problems and damage their mental health. And I want to talk about that with specificity, and I would be really interested in what you're finding. So I'd love to talk about this again. So hopefully we can make that happen in the not too distant future.
I would love that. Thank you so much.
Well, you guys have both been very instructive and very helpful. So let's talk again in the not too distant future. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
You bet. We'll talk soon. Thanks a lot. So long.